Jake wants his seat back, is what he's saying. So.
No. I think we're all right. Now that Adam's gone, let's.
We're gonna get our close-up.
This will be good.
All right. So BAM MVP.
So if you're just joining us,
We're on a broadcast.
I know it's nice. If you're, I'm taking one of these.
Go, please do.
All right. If you're just joining us, Adam had to take off for part 2. Hopefully, you got all the way through part 1. We were talking statistics. Talking most important statistics in baseball. Talked about on-base percentage, slugging percentage, how runs, RBI, some of that stuff. You're relying on other players. Went in depth on the worth in numbers rating that we developed to determine overall value. And Adam shared his National League and American League MVPs, of National League being Christian Yelich and American League being Mookie Betts. So we're going to share ours and kind of talk through a few of the BAM players that we had that Justin helped with some of the voting and what he thought. I never heard the end results. And again, it came down to 2. It was a really, really close ballot, and both were very, very deserving. So, definitely not talking anybody down from winning an MVP or who should have won it or anything like that. But interesting to look at what the numbers specifically say, which is nice because it takes the emotion out of it. So, my National League MVP is Yelich, for sure.
Yes. No,
And American League is also Mookie, which I think ESPN or MLB is struggling with because they still have the Triple Crown chase showing. I think they really wanted JD to get it.
Right.
But how do you, even if he wins Triple Crown, is he the MVP then? Because I think Mookie's season is...
if you win the Triple Crown, I think you're MVP.
But that
Because
puts
you're
so
the
much
best
at-
at average, you're the best at home runs, and you're best at RBI. So you're the best at everything the MLB's marketing. So how can you not
True.
give it to the kid?
I don't know if I would vote that way.
No, I wouldn't either. But
based on Major League, you definitely...
have to give it to the Triple
it's a
Crown.
shoe.
You have to, right?
It's a shoe.
So I agree. I would like to try out because I think he's the best player, but he kind of screws
Yeah.
himself with the season, so it's probably going to be Mookie as well.
For sure.
But yeah, Jose had a good season as well. Going to this though. All right. All BAM players, you guys had good seasons. But yeah, these are all good seasons.
There's a lot that goes into that. I'm going to slide us back.
I know. There you go.
So
no one
a
had him.
few-
He probably picked Mr. Gannon.
A few of the seasons that we were talking through, really looking at, it really came down to 2. We had one guy that hit 491, 545 on base, 632 slugging, 1.177 OPS, 11 doubles, 1 triple, 1 home run, 25 runs, 42 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, and Adam's all about strikeouts, and he only struck out 4 times on the entire year.
That's really impressive.
That's a heck of a
No
season.
matter where you're playing, that's
Yes,
good.
that's a heck of a
good.
season. The other person,
So it has to be this guy.
the other person hit 477
It's a
with a 516 on base,
He didn't win it.
791 slugging, 1.306 OPS, 19 doubles, 2 home runs, 27 runs, 27 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, and only struck out 6 times.
You're right. Okay, so I saw this guy in person. I didn't get to see the other gentleman. And shout out Wycliffe, shout out BDBs out there. I know you're listening. But yeah, this kid was like the Trout. Like, he did what he had to do, but he just didn't have the supporting cast when you needed it.
Sure.
So he showed up every game, but sometimes his teammates would or his teammates wouldn't. But this kid showed up every game, and you could tell he was the best player on the team, or I'll say best hitter. And looking at these numbers, I'm sure this kid had some help.
Sure.
Because I think you hit with one of the kids he's
Yep.
teammates with. Right, and that kid's good. This guy was on an island, so to speak. So, again, I have to get to number 1, but we'll see who won.
So the winner, the first one we talked about, Tice Farrell had an awesome season with 477, 19 doubles. Sean Gannon on our 14U team was the winner. He had
I should have known. A little home cooking. It's all right. It's all right, Tice.
491,
It's all
11
right, Tice.
doubles, 1 triple, 1 home run. And that the voting process, without going too in depth, is every single head coach in the entire organization does get a vote after talking about players and going through that. So it's a fun process and a cool thing for us to do, be able to do that. Tice did win Offensive Player of the Year. And one of the things that we should mention is Sean does pitch a little bit, not a lot. I don't think he'd consider himself a pitcher.
No,
He's a catcher.
not with those numbers.
But he did pitch a little bit. So that went into it, I'm sure, for guys of like teetering between the two of he got on the mound. Tice threw probably 2 pitches all year. I actually got to see this, and I do have to share this story. It's really funny. Tice, his coach told him to go warm up. Tice is a big kid, like 6'4"?
He's a big boy.
And so everybody just thought he pitched. Well, he's warming up in the bullpen, and we all hear him say, "Man, I haven't pitched in 3 years." Like,
Great
okay,
start, coach.
Here we go.
Yeah, great start.
So he goes in, catcher calls fastball outside. Tice throws fastball inside, and he throws relatively hard. Catcher couldn't get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
He hits the umpire square in the balls. Just drills him. So we're 2 pitches in, and we find out Tice doesn't actually pitch. We're now on a delay because they have to change umpires because that dude's not coming back.
Oh, no, he's done.
And now we're pulling Tice because we figured out Tice doesn't pitch. So that was one of my first experiences watching Tice play, was figuring out that although Offensive Player of the Year, definitely not a Cy Young candidate.
No, not at all.
So based on our metric, our win metric of total bases, stolen bases, strikeouts, hit by pitch errors, Tice had an overall total worth in numbers of 16.5. Sean's was 22.25. But Tice was short season.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sean was long season as a 14U.
Right.
So when you break it down to the overall worth in numbers per game, Tice was at 0.568 and Sean was at 0.517, which means if you take everything else out of it, just based on the numbers and the objectivity of numbers, Tice should have been the MVP based on only numbers, and no pitching.
Take faces and all that.
And you take that side out of it.
Now, question is, Mr. Gannon, is he a lefty as well?
He's a righty.
Ah.
He's a righty hitter. Yeah, really, really good polished bat for his age. So, I mean, you couldn't go wrong making a choice.
Right, yeah, they both had great seasons.
And those numbers are really close. And there was actually, the one I do want to talk about is Lane Harmon. And Lane was an 11U last year. Hit leadoff. He only hit on the season, I say only, it was still a good season, but he hit 301 on the season. He had a teammate hit 447 and one hit 474.
That seems going to be good.
But Lane had 57 stolen bases. And it was interesting to put those numbers in because he had 2 other kids on his team that absolutely killed the ball, that won a lot of awards. One of them won Rookie of the Year. A couple of them won Silver Sluggers. I mean, they killed it. And when you put it into this metric, based on his stolen base numbers, Lane actually should have been second in MVP voting in the organization, ahead of even Sean Gannon and those teammates of his, because he was creating bases. But that's not a sexy stat that people look at, because everybody wants the RBIs and that other thing. So it's interesting to break it down in total value and see where he landed.
Even though he had almost 200 points less.
200 points less.
He still finished better in the win.
But overall, of his value of what he was individually creating, he created more runs.
That's why baseball's a beautiful game. You don't have to be the big and baddest guy. You can be small. You can be tall. You can do whatever. You can be from any part of life. You can play this game.
It's an interesting thing to look at, because the other thing too is it's different based on age group of what you're going to create. So to see that Tice and even Sean at the 16U and 14U levels put up numbers that were equal to or better than that of 11U players means they had a heck of a season.
Right. Do you guys put that in consideration when you're doing your MVP, like when you're talking to the coaches?
We do. Yeah, we consider that, and that was one of the things with Tice and Sean, of like, they both played high level tournaments, great competition, upper level age groups, to where they were pretty close to consider for sure. But it puts it into perspective when we look at Mookie Betts against Major League pitching, has a win per game of 0.7, and our MVP had a 0.52.
Right. Against
14-year-old pitching of how good Mookie Betts is right now. But to put it into perspective too, our players that we were considering in their range were like a range of Francisco Lindor and Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and Christian Yelich and JD Martinez. It was that production in their age level is what they were putting up.
Right.
So they were still doing incredible, but that's why I say Mookie might be having a top 20 season of all time, is the number that he's putting up on.
So ideally a perfect score for win would be 1.
You can go above 1. 1 would just be saying that every single game you're creating by yourself 1 run.
Okay, I got you.
But you could also go in the negatives. I've had kids in the negatives because they can't field from the air side or their strikeout side. That obviously, and kids don't like that if they say, "Why am I not playing?" And you say, "Well, your worth in numbers is like you're hurting our team by being on.
By you being in the lineup right now, right?
And that's not me just being a jerk. That's me showing you like you actually have a negative score.
Right.
And for high school season last year, we started the season and we had a lot of guys with a negative score. And when our season,
what was your record?
Early on,
Right.
Very bad. We were like 1
probably.
in 10 or 1 in 11 to start the year.
I'm sure if those were positive scores, you would have a different
When
record.
the trend turned,
Right.
suddenly we win 4 or 5 in a row and we're playing for a county championship.
Mhm.
So it has shown to correlate with the higher the win rating, the more runs you're scoring, and the less you're giving up because you're not making the errors, which gives you a negative score, which directly does relate to wins.
Right.
So you should be able to, at the end of the game, add up the total wins, and that gives you a total metric of value of runs. So if you get, I mean, granted, it doesn't include pitching, so it's not going to be an add up to exactly what you scored or what you gave up. But if it's negative, I will guarantee if you have a negative win total at the end of that game, you lost that game. Whereas if it's positive, the higher the number, the better chance you had to win.
Now, do you have a system for win for pitchers yet, or do you have a
No. So anybody out there that's more of a pitching guy than me,
Sorry,
please help.
SOL.
I have. I've definitely looked into it, but it's a little bit harder because the closest thing to it is FIP, which is fielding independent pitching.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes just absolutes of strikeouts, walks, and home runs, and that gives you essentially an ERA type rating, taking out all fielding.
Right.
But that's the hard part with pitching is there's always going to be fielding.
Right.
So it's really difficult to take out all of the fielding metrics to it and determine like which pitcher is actually most valuable to you. And I think
the fielders you have, like you have a bunch of Gold Glovers, or you have a bigger park, so you're not gonna give up as many home runs.
Right.
Like,
I think with the numbers that are out there, if we take this, we throw it away.
right.
The numbers that are out there, WHIP from the pitching side is probably the most important, most indicative of long-term success, and OPS on the offensive side is most indicative of long-term success, taking that combination of on-base and slugging.
Right.
But you hear everybody talk average
Power
and
and
home runs, and I mean, there's definitely a place for it in the game, but I think we've put that on such a pedestal that we lose a lot of value in what players do. And don't sleep on the A's because they've.
Right.
I think if we did this per team, the A's are probably close to the highest.
You think so?
Right
As a team?
now, as a
Not the
team.
Red Sox?
Red Sox are probably up there too, but they
Right.
have a similar lineup with just bigger name guys. Of
Right.
what they, I mean, Matt Chapman and what he's doing is very, very similar to what you get from a JD Martinez. It's just a smaller market,
So you don't hear as much.
You don't hear it.
Right.
But I mean, he's having a great season.
is
They
nice.
actually, selfishly, I root for the A's. I have a buddy that plays for him, which is awesome. But he even, and maybe this is where it comes from. His dad coached me in travel growing up. But this kid has the NCAA record for most games reach base in a row. Not hitting,
Right.
not
Just
hitting
reach base.
reach base in a row for Kansas State. I don't think it's been broken since he was there, but it may have. And then was stuck in the minors in the Cardinal system for a long time, and this year was a free agent, got signed to a AAA contract by the A's, and got a spring training invite, and now he's starting pretty much every day in left field for him, and doing well, hitting nearly 300, really high on base, doing what he's always done, just find ways to get on base. And if there's one place where you can be a guy that just gets on base, it's the A's.
That's
So
awesome.
hopefully he's there for a long time, but really, really interesting to see.
Who won the Cy Young? 1, 2, or 3?
The Cy Young was actually, I have to tell you a funny story about that later, but it was actually number 1.
All right, that's what I was going to say. All right.
Sam Hinshaw, congrats. It was close between him and
good.
Tristan Elder and Rylan Hunley, but Elder had a few less innings that played a role.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the season, Sam actually set the all-time strikeout record. So there were some career metrics that went into it that I think coaches really liked based on vote. But both had a sub-2. All three of the guys had sub-2 ERAs and really similar whips in the 1.1 to 1.2 range.
Low strikeout, low walks.
Yeah, high strikeout to walk ratios, which was good. So again, there were really good opportunities there, and you couldn't have picked a bad one out of the 3. So, and when you get to those awards, that's what's hard. Even MLB, you're splitting hairs between production and guys that have had great seasons. So some of it does come down to which teams are in and what that looks like.
Unfortunately, that's how it is because that's athletics. That's the competition.
It is. It is for
Can't give
sure.
everyone a trophy.
So
Wouldn't mean as much.
that's. I mean, when you take other metrics and you look at this, because this is the first time you're seeing this. I haven't.
Right. Yeah. I've never.
Justin and I chat a lot and give lessons next to each other. Shout out to Extra Innings Indy South where we are right now.
Yep.
Come sign up for lessons. But I haven't shown him this. What are your thoughts on it? What holes do you see? What value do you see to it?
I mean,
Curious as to a different perspective.
It was just interesting to see what you took into it, just the formula, and it looks like it's pretty accurate where these guys are going to line up in the MVP. Javi would probably be a little higher just because of, like you said, the market.
Sure.
And they show
The
a lot
swag.
of game, right? Yeah, the showmanship of it. Whereas Kane's really boring, but he hits 320 every year, 10 bombs, whatever it is. But no, it's very indicative of what's probably going to happen. That's a good predictor. Have you ever thought about like using this for like colleges, like branching out to colleges or trying to like market it to people?
So the last 2 years I've toyed with the metric itself and kind of played around with it. And then last year was the first year that I kind of unveiled it to our high school team to try it out and see. And after every game we would update it, I would tweet it out so they could see where it was. And it started to strike me like midway through the season of exactly how accurate I thought it was, of like where I would place my players in value, and really like once you start seeing the categories of where they lined up value-wise and how I could best utilize them roles on the team and all that. So it's still pretty new.
Okay.
I would love to, Tim Kirkchin, coming your way,
Right.
tweeting out this rating, because I think there's value to it that could be
Now,
seen.
do your players buy into it? I mean,
They
they
did.
have no choice.
They did. They were at first, of course, there were some that were like, "No, I bring more value to the team than that."
Of course they do, right?
But as they started to really see, like, okay, a good game just bumped me up a few points. I did really well. I think they began to buy into the value, and especially when the value started to correlate to wins, then they definitely saw value in that.
So, like, for
And
instance,
there is room, if you're going to use it like for your individual team, you know your team, to add that small subjectivity of like run saving or like a play where you could take away an error, or a spectacular play like that, to where it's plus 0.25 rather where an error takes it away, to where you can do that to add more of that defensive metric. But I think if you're going to use it wide scale, you can't have that piece in it. But small scale for you, of like you as a coach determining things, it can definitely be added in.
Yeah,
and we did for high school. We had
awesome.
a run saving or a spectacular play category where, you know, some of our middles got, or our catcher like back picking a guy,
Right.
you'd save yourself there a
outfield
little
assists,
bit.
I assume. Or
Yeah.
if they don't score, you cannot lose the game.
You can't lose.
Defense is huge.
It is.
And kids, again, it's not sexy unless you
No.
make that Jeter play, but like you make the routine plays routine. Again, they only have what? For you guys, what? 24 out?
21.
21 outs. 21 outs.
Math is hard, but 21 outs.
21 outs. Okay? That's all they get. They can't buy a lifeline or a challenge flag. It's like, no. You check swung and hit it to the pitcher, you got 20 outs now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if kids start grasping that concept, if they don't score, we can't lose. Because what's the hardest thing to do in baseball?
Score.
Hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just like I said, just maybe squeak out a couple more runs, and your ERA or your runs and your wins are from what? Was he 14-14 now? Something like that? To 30-0, 25-1, 26. That's absurd.
Right. Those I always go back to those DeGrom numbers because they are absolutely insane.
Can you imagine someone going undefeated? Like a team can't even go undefeated. Like it's hard to go undefeated in anything in life.
Yes. And you go 30-0. 30-0 is what he would be if they just scored 4 runs a game.
30
That's ridiculous. Because of that, I would almost vote him MVP.
Right. Like I didn't know that.
But you can't vote for an MVP that's 9-9. You don't even have 10 wins. You're not an MVP.
But he doesn't have 10 wins.
Right, because of that.
Because he can't score 2 runs.
I know. It's bad. You should be a 20-game winner. And that'll be, like, what he's got to be thinking. Maybe he's not. I would be. But
Getting out of New York as fast as possible.
yes, he should be thinking that. But if he puts these numbers up for the next couple of years and the same thing happens, what are they going to do when the Hall comes knocking and his win total? He hasn't hit 300 wins.
Right.
He hasn't had.
But he has the strikeouts and everything else. But
his metrics aren't there on the win side because his teams were so bad.
The rings. It's not the playoff appearances.
Right.
Or the wins. Right.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there, and how that plays out down the road. Because we've seen some crazy things with the Hall of Fame. I mean, we see Bonds. We see Pete Rose. There's a lot of different reasons that keep people out.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So
and maybe
should it be about the
win
numbers
total
or should
will
it be other factors? Because he won't have the numbers, all the numbers.
Right.
But he has the outside factors because he would be having the numbers if he was on any other team. Even the Rays are hitting now.
I'm a numbers guy to a T, but I'm a guy who wants the right numbers.
So it's black and white for the Hall of Fame. There's no gray.
Yes.
You're either in or you're out.
Put him in.
Because
Barry
of
Bonds, put him in.
Numbers.
Yes,
Okay.
numbers.
I got you.
Numbers, absolutely. You want steroids in baseball, just make it legal and let everybody do it. I don't care.
And then make it a choice then. Like,
Right.
It's legal. You can do it or you don't.
Right. Move the fences back or something. Whatever.
Would you
need
move the
to
fences
do.
back? Why?
I don't know.
Because again,
I'd like to see what run production was. I know it was higher then,
Mhm.
but how much higher?
Do you think it was higher because they weren't as good? Because what was the early
Maybe.
2000s?
Yeah.
Kids are a lot better now.
They
It's
are.
been, what, 15 years?
Well, and pitchers were on them too, and velocity was up
Okay.
for some of them then. Velocity's up now. Shout
velocity's
out the
up,
drive line and
right.
everything going on
If
with all
velocity's
that.
up and you hit it, guess what's going to happen just as a result? Steroids or no steroids?
Right.
The ball's going to go farther.
Right.
Right.
And what we found in the last few years with Diamond Kinetics coming out with all this stuff with launch angles.
Sponsor, right?
And
It's a
they are,
sponsor.
yeah. Shout out to DK.
Shout out Justin.
He'll be here next week for our
Next
Nevo Day.
week.
Hopefully we
There
can
we
get
go.
him on one of these.
Can't wait.
But
Be rip.
what we're finding, like Chris Davis, not hitting
crush.
120 and making $20 million to do that, but Chris Davis on the A's is 5'10", $180. He's not a big dude, but he gets so much leverage in his swing and his launch angle is so good and his bat stays through the zone so long that he's able to create enough power and leverage to hit home runs. And back then we weren't, and that was still very much the down to the ball era of getting backspin and doing all that, which still has some validity to it, I think, for certain hitters.
Right.
But we found a different way to generate similar power that I don't know if steroids would change the numbers as much anymore for those guys, because you still got to square it up. You're still taking
exactly.
a round ball and a
Still have
round
to
bat
hit
and
it,
having
right.
to hit it square, and
Yes.
that's very difficult to do. So that's a whole other topic that we can get into, and I would love that. But I think we agree. Surprisingly, I didn't think anyone would agree with me coming into tonight.
I see the numbers.
About numbers.
The numbers
but
don't lie.
The numbers don't lie.
So yeah.
And I think
I have nothing to say about it.
when we're managing fantasy football, you can get a lesson from this of playing the numbers, not necessarily projections. I'd be interested to see how ESPN, what algorithm they use for projections, for like fantasy points and all that. But even fantasy baseball, what if fantasy baseball wasn't about home runs and RBIs and it was about actual player
You
statistics?
should probably try that a season. And
It would be
and
fun.
See if you did well in your league.
I don't think I would, because it's
instead of
runs and
picking-
RBIs
right.
and
Oh, I got you. So,
So-
you're saying the scoring format needs to change.
yeah.
I got
If
you, I
you're
got
true, because when you go to draft in the NFL, one of the things that you look at is like, hey, if it's PPR or not PPR, is
Right.
my running back going to get touches and going to get opportunities to do
To
that?
catch the ball.
And you'd have to do the same thing in baseball of like, hey, is this hitter going to get RBI chances?
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to draft him as early.
True.
So if it was just about who's the best player, because not your best player isn't always your first pick
No.
in the draft.
No.
Because I mean, as good as Le'Veon Bell is, and he's not playing right now, but if it's not PPR, then that takes away some of his value.
Right, you want
Same
to score
thing,
touchdowns.
right? Same thing with the Melvin
Right.
Gordon and some of that.
Yes,
so
yes.
it changes it in baseball too, where it'd be interesting to have metrics matter only in what they can individually create, and do a fantasy league for like just this.
Right.
A fantasy league for their win rating of what are you striking out, getting on base, an athletics type
Dude,
money ball.
You need to make a call to Tim.
They need to have like
And make your
that
own.
option.
Make
They
your
need to
own,
have
yeah,
an option
fantasy.
of Moneyball fantasy baseball.
Yeah.
I would play that.
Of course
I
you
think.
would.
I would
You
get
got
into
your
that.
win algorithm.
I would get into that. So if you have questions about the win rating, feel free to slide into our DMs.
Always slide.
Make sure to
Head first.
Head first.
Always.
Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook pages where we post everything out. We would love to hear some feedback or some challenges as to why this is a terrible metric, what you think would be better. We're very open to that. We can always do a follow-up as to what you guys said and what your thoughts were, but I'm curious to see other people's opinions on if you agree with MVP ideas from us, and why, what goes into that, what you guys think are the most important metrics, and if anybody can debunk the win rating that slowly but surely is gaining ground and about to take Major League Baseball, apparently. So, who knows?
Hey, I was here.
You were here.
I was the
day
first ones. I'm not going to be on the bandwagon.
from
late.
Z-list
Yeah.
celebrity
Boom.
to A-list because of the win rating.
Because
It's
of the win
coming your
rating.
way.
I'll ride your tail, coach.
It's coming your way. Well, we got great content coming for you guys in the next couple of weeks with Diamond Kinetics going to be here about the use of electronics and different metrics in baseball. A little bit about Wilson Premier and the program that they run, another sponsor of ours, which is awesome. And then, of course, playoff baseball coming up, getting geared up for that. We are going to put a poll on the Instagram for if we should go live during a playoff game, of just us discussing the game live on Instagram for the game, of just discussing the game, what we would do in certain situations.
Will there be adult beverages?
There will be plastic
or
cups.
Plastic cup? Plastic cup boys?
And what you put in those cups is up to you.
Okay.
But yeah, we would love to hear feedback. we would love to hear feedback if you guys think you would watch that or tune in to us going live for a playoff game. And in the meantime, check out the rating, check out part 1 and part 2 of the podcast. But we appreciate you guys watching the BAMCast, and we're ready for another week next Tuesday. This is where